Hello, I'm Perry Calton, and you might have wondered why I started out this video with my eyes closed. That's because that's how I get past the little me mind and go on to mind with a capital M. And I've been doing that for over 30 years now, and it's kind of been developed in union with that other dimension, beyond time, beyond form. Became obvious to me early on in my spiritual journey that stilling my mind and connecting with that other dimension was vital in letting a space happen in my mind that would give room for other ways of thinking. I close my eyes often, just for a moment or two. That's about all it takes anymore. And sometimes I don't even have to close my eyes. I just have to have my thoughts aligned with that which seems to be beyond language and beyond form. So I probably won't talk a lot about that experience of being beyond language and form, because it seems like words seem to minimize it. The first time I experienced that was in the mid to late 70s, 1970s, and it was purely not my intent to have that kind of experience. I was contemplating some very complex, maybe even impossible to understand kind of things, and kind of doing mind experiments like was talked about by Albert Einstein. And then I started having flashes of insight, like Krishnamurti talks about. And those flashes of insight did take me, or didn't really take me anywhere. It just allowed me to experience this other dimension, I'll call it right now, other dimension. I may call it something else later, but I couldn't quite ignore that experience, because even though it was without language, and believe me, I tried to find the language for it, and finally discovered that, or learned that trying to explain the unexplainable, trying to explain the unknown, yet it can be known and it can be experienced, that I was just better off just kind of carrying it with me, and maybe in silence it might be communicated somehow or the other. I'm not really how much of it I understood that concept of just letting it be, and somehow or other others might experience it without me saying anything. That did come later, but back before I was 30 years old, that kind of concept didn't come to me. In fact, that's why I kept talking about it, and I was met with anywhere from just total rejection to, well, okay, I'll have to think about that for a little while, or some resonance, some receptivity, but not much. In the very early 80s, in 1982 to be more precise, that other dimension, beyond form, beyond time, beyond space, beyond body, came upon me. And it was incredible. And it had a double-edged sword along with it, having the most luxurious mental, emotional, spiritual kind of experience that I had ever had. Along with that was this irresistible urge to share it. I couldn't hold it back, and every time I tried to share it, it was met with speculation and a lot of suspicion that maybe I had in fact gone crazy, and obviously it was even obvious to me I had begun sounding like a blibbering idiot, and I finally agreed with myself that I had to keep from being perceived as a blibbering idiot, or maybe fearing that I was a blibbering idiot. I quit talking about it, and to some extent. And because this kind of stuff was new to me, nobody around me as I was growing up had anything like that except for maybe my grandmother. But she didn't talk about that much. She used the framework of religion, but she was the only one in my family that used the framework of religion. She came closer to expressing it than anybody else, but along with that was entangled this misperceptions about God and religion and all of those things. So I even put her off a little bit, but there was some kind of authenticity to what she was saying that I did hold on to all my life and still hang on to it. It was like she was tapping there somehow, tapping that other dimension somehow, experiencing that other dimension somehow, but not in a language that translated very well for me, and certainly not anybody else in the family. However, when those experiences became very intense, accompanied by the urge to share it, religion was one of those things that I used. And I don't recall right now being labeled a religious fanatic, but if I had been called that, I could see where persons might think that. But in fact, it was actually more opposite of religion than what it may have been perceived. But that irresistible urge to share it was a motivator for me to start finding references to the same kind of experience and how they described it and what curriculum they had used to have that experience. And that gave me some foundations. Yes, even religion, Buddhism, Hinduism, metaphysics. And I went from a person that didn't like to read at all to, unless it was just very, very, just really captured my desire to learn before, so I wouldn't read. But now I started gobbling up books like it was food. I was like digesting it just about. And the more I read stuff that corresponded or resonated with how I experienced this other dimension. I'll just put a note here. There's not really another dimension. There's only one real, true dimension. All else is a miniaturized miniaturized version of reality. And along the way, while trying to increase my vocabulary so that I wouldn't sound like such an idiot when I shared it, I learned that there was something that I could do, that I did have some say-so about when those experiences would come about. And since this experience of this other dimension became more and more real to me, it showed me how unreal my perceptions of reality were in error. And while reading these books, I stumbled upon somebody using the word thank you to ease out the errors, the error thinking. And that actually began a more than a 30-year journey through what I incorrectly labeled stopping thoughts. And for a while, that's what I thought I was doing. But after a while, I learned that that isn't what I was doing at all, and it wasn't just me coming up with it, that somehow or other this other dimension, while experiencing it, and coming back to this dimension of form and time and space and stuff like that, I brought a little bit back with me. And I wanted more of that. I wanted more of that beyond time, space, form, even beyond the known, beyond language. I wanted that. And I also found out that there's other ways to share it. And today I call it extending it. And I could call it love. I could call that other dimension true essence. That other dimension, that I am dimension, not me this, me that, not the little ideas, not the miniaturized versions of reality kind of stuff. It was where I connected with I am, that I am life. I'm not Perry trying to live or being alive. It's a jump from that. I am life. I am love. And these are all synonyms here: life, love, peace, beyond understanding. What began as, entitled as, and by the way, I got help titling it. I think it seemed to fit at the right time, and I wasn't the only one involved in this, learning this meditation. It's, I think, some right thinking, some mind of God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, whatever we want to label it, was all part of that process. It was like I was being taught. And it was a co-effort. And so in some circles I say, well, here's something Jesus taught me. I was not auditory hallucinating, but I was instead I was getting some voices and or a voice and pictures in my mind, or just kind of like a new me had been born somehow or the other. And here's a good pause time for me, because not particularly that I thought I was slipping off into the little mind, the little miniature version, even though it's inevitable to get into a miniaturized version, because non-dualistic is from the unspeakable, from the unknown, the inability to conceptualize to a so abstract that it could never really be conceptualized well enough. It's an experience. And I am trusting. One of the reasons I'm making this video is because I am trusting that others will be able to be aware of that other side, doing it how I did it. Not everybody. And there's tons of different kinds of meditation. This stopping thoughts is, I would say maybe a little bit out of the customary type of medication. It's an unguided type of meditation. It's without pictures. Its entire technique, and I'm going to describe it how it was then, and that was that I would first get comfortable, physically comfortable, and I would pay attention to my thinking. And as soon as a thought came, whether it be about, oh, paying taxes this year is really going to be a bummer, to I wished I had different shoestrings. These come undone all the time. Why did I sit down to do this when I'm really hungry? I probably should have ate before I decided to do this. Out of anywhere, anytime. Before, after, future. It's really important things, seemingly. Very minute, minor things, seemingly. As soon as it hit my mind, I'd say, thank you. And my thank you was a tool, a device that replaced that thought with just the words thank you. And so that's kind of why I called it stopping thoughts, because it seemed like that I was, as soon as, it's what am I going to eat tonight, come up in my mind, I would just think, thank you. And considering that thought unimportant. And me and my colleagues, my spiritual colleagues, perhaps from the other dimension, or that were with me all along that I didn't recognize, started coaxing me into adding some value to thank you. And this is how this stopping thought meditation technique began to evolve or build on itself. And I thought, well, it's heard somewhere that gratitude is often the result of the practice of being grateful. Yeah, sure, every once in a while there's things to be grateful for that seem to come out of the clear blue sky. But then also I started to learn that attitude can be a learned attitude. The attitude of gratitude can be learned. So I started adding on to it the thank you. And I might for one day entirely practice thank you for the things that I'm really grateful for. It's, I have a home, I have a place to stay. It's, I have a job good enough to afford food. And I would go from there to some of the most richest type. I would push it and push it and push it and push it. Yeah, I'm glad I've got clothes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So deliberately thinking about stuff that I could be grateful for, from the most minor of things to the biggest of things. So now, thank you, after practicing that, thank you became a double-loaded word. It was a tool for easing out thoughts, and now it was also becoming grateful. And it seemed like the more that I push it, the more stuff came out that hadn't come out before. Oh, well, I'm grateful I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. Why didn't I think about that a lot earlier? It was like the more I did, the more it seemed to pull from me, or maybe even my subconscious, I don't know, but pull from me for stuff that I hadn't really thought about being grateful for. Oh, I'd have been grateful for not smoking anymore. That's why that wasn't one of the first kind of things that would come up, I don't know, but it took some pulling out and being grateful for some of the real obvious things. Well, even not smoking is an obvious thing. Why didn't it come out sooner? I don't know, but I do know that it came out sooner, or it came out eventually as a result of practicing being grateful. And some little bitty stuff too. Thank you for the leaves on the trees. Thank you for letting the leaves fall off the trees. That's and I could do that right in front of you now, but this is better experienced by yourselves. And in some later videos, I'll talk a little about some of that and how I experienced some of that. And then I started adding on other kinds of thank yous. Even thank you for the stuff considered bad, or considered, oh, before I get to that one, there's the thank you for being thankful for stuff that I'm forgotten. Or I'm sure after a full day of being thankful for what I've got, I've left some stuff out. So then I added a third value to thank yous, and that's thank you for stuff that I forgot all about. And those were all the good things. Then I started practicing the thank you for the stuff that I had a hard time being have a gratitude about, and that's the bad stuff. And some of you may be able to relate to this. Some of the worst things that ever happened to me turned out to be the best things that ever happened to me, because it seemed to help point me in a straighter and narrower path. Or it's an opportunity to forgive, and the power of forgiveness, I think, does work all the way down to the quantum level, the subatomic level. It's to an infinite level. And so being able to be grateful for the negative experiences became at least as important, if not more, than being grateful for the good stuff. And all through the time, I guess for the whole 30 years, there's been new levels of things to be grateful for. That's what I wanted. That's what I willed it to be. And as a result of this meditation style and a whole bunch of other things, I became just a great big ball of grateful and happiness and joy and love. But I'll get into that later. I think the most funnest part, I know that's not correct grammar, but I'll be silly for a little while. The most funnest kind of thank you was the thank you for the future. Now, it's yes, okay. That's I agree. Time is eternal, and only the human mini mind wants to segment time out into minutes and hours and days and years and centuries and millennia and thousands and thousands of millennia. The Big Bang. It all started then. I think those are all mini minds, little me's concepts, and other me's concepts of what reality is, but it can't help but be miniaturized. But anyway, just entertain the thought right now. And this was, when I taught this is how I taught it. I called it the Santa Claus thank yous. And what I wanted to help establish, and I might go, okay, here we go with the Santa Claus thank yous, and anybody that had been to these meditation classes, which were all free, by the way, still are, still will be, forever and ever. It's by me. Santa Claus, I wanted folks to kind of envision themselves as a child, still believing in Santa Claus. I'm not saying Santa Claus doesn't exist. I'm just saying, just imagine yourself like when you were a kid and you were around brothers and sisters or friends and family, and you were sure Santa Claus was going to be coming, and that there was going to be some gifts for you. And so that's what I did. I said, okay, well, and I'm not sure how it came about. Again, this was a team effort in between me and my spiritual guides. And so we come up with Santa Claus thank yous. And I said, imagine you're very young and innocent and full of curiosity and wonder. And Santa Claus is going to be coming. And Santa Claus is going to bring you a bicycle or some toy, or there might even be friends and family around that you don't get to see but once in a while. So and there's going to be surprises. And so imagine yourself that young child, and you're kind of sitting on the steps, looking down on the living room where the Christmas tree is, everything, where Santa Claus is going to appear while you're asleep. And that's where you're going to go down in the morning if you're a Christmas present opener in the morning or the evening, and anticipating that visit or those presents. And let the inner little child come out going, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't even need to put pictures of, it's a bicycle, it's a train set. No. That's not what you're after. Or not what I was after. What we're after here is the energy of expectation. The energy of somehow or other this other dimension being aware of what you really, really need, what you really, really want, even maybe better than yourself. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And inevitably, and sometimes by me leading, it would break out in laughter. Oh, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. The state of receptivity, expectation, and beyond words comfort zone that I'm in right now is, I believe, there for everybody as a result of my willingness to practice going beyond the mind of form. And there's a few other kind of things that I believe I'm being urged to share, but I don't want to make this video here so long that I can't get it uploaded, or people are going to go, well, that's a little bit too much of that. I'm not going to return and listen to the other videos. I guarantee some surprises. And I guess the irony in this is this is kind of my part of my letting go. Not because stopping thoughts, improperly titled, it's even though stopping thoughts has paid off 1,000, 1,000,000 times more than I ever thought it would. It's in fact, now I don't have to spend days or hours to open myself to beyond words, beyond time and space. It's to the formless, reality. In fact, I'm going there right now. I'm having aware of that right now as I'm talking. It's like I have become the meditation. And so it's not that it's not working, the reason I'm leaving it. It's because, okay, that's, now I've got that going with me, that, effortlessly, involuntarily, it's going with me. It's like I've got a foot in both worlds, kind of. Of course, really there's only one world. It's except for made up in the dream or the illusion. There seems to be two. But as I have seemed to go back and forth for so many years, it's like, okay, stopping thoughts has served its purpose, and it's time for me to look at another kind of meditation. And I've looked at quite a few over the years, and I'm not really researching right now. I believe it's going to come to me. I believe it's just going to, one day, it's going to, it's going to have another technique is going to resonate with me so much that it'll be obvious that's one to move, or at least consider moving on to. So in a sort of way, this is kind of saying either goodbye to the technique entirely, or goodbye to the limits that I have put on it. And I still do the miniaturized version of it. That's funny. I will probably now take short sabbaticals up to a second or less than a second of going, oh, okay, I want to be aware of that other dimension. Just right there. It's right there. That's if I've sensed it gone at all. In fact, I do it anyway, even though I haven't sensed it gone. That's still part of my practice. I can be aware of the other dimension just by paying attention to my breath. I can be aware of the other dimension just by simply closing my eyes for just a second, and it's there. So much there that it's like I said, it's becoming more like me. It's like I've visited the essence, the real reality, the truth, so much, and brought it back to me, to this world of form with me so much, that now I'm carrying this non-language based, non-conception based dimension, truth, reality, love, I'm carrying it with me effortlessly. And what comes along with love being involuntarily and involuntary and flowing with it, aligned with it, what happens from that? So I think that this YouTube will have a place to comment, and it'll also, I think, have my email address. At least that's what I intend. Doing stuff on YouTube is brand new to me. All my teaching has really been live, and I don't do live teaching anymore. Not that I've shut that off. It's just that it just hadn't seemed to be right time, right place. And so right now it's clear that I'm getting guidance to move on to the venue of YouTube, and if it stirs something in you, good or bad, right or wrong, I thank it. I am thankful for others' experience and opinions. My email address should be on there. I do a lot of over the phone, Skype, FaceTime, communicating all over the world. And right now that's what hand I'm being dealt, it seems. And to use a kind of crude way to explain it. And whether it's going to stay that way and it's going to jump to something else, or whether it'll all become not a part of my function. But as of right now, the plan is to follow this video up with explanations of the thank yous and how they can be built upon. And hopefully somebody else will grab this up and reach new levels, or perhaps some questions about this from other people will give cause for me to distill it better, communicate it differently. And that's me learning as a teacher and teaching as a student. And sometimes I still do the Santa Claus thank yous just because it feels so good. And the expectations, there's expectations I think that will get us in trouble, or seemingly trouble. And there's expectations that are glorious because they seem to they seem to prime the pump. I think that those expectations for me has resulted in how the Course in Miracles explain miracles or define miracles. It's like, would I have experienced that miracle shift if I hadn't been building up on expectations? Like, expect miracles. And I think expecting miracles is moving towards a real positive kind of expectation, where expecting my Uncle George to loan me a bunch of money, because after all he's my uncle, could be pointing in a direction that's not as helpful kind of expectation. And that's all kind of sorting that we all have to do for ourselves. So, for now, I'm going to close. I can't think much more that I want to say in an introduction. But until next time, it has been marvelous, at least for me. Even if this video doesn't get viewed. The place that it brings me, and it doesn't really bring me to a place, it just opens me to a truth and reality. The doing this has opened me even more, I guess. Oh well, I won't try to explain it. I love you, and hopefully we'll see you again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.